Elon Musk was born in South Africa. At 12 years old, he sold his first piece of commercial software he programmed. Years later, he went on to make his fortune during the internet boom, making just under $200 million with PayPal and just over $20 million with Zip2. Now, 39 years later, Elon is building rocket ships and making electric cars. As the CEO of SpaceX and Tesla Motors, Elon's dream is to make living on Mars a reality, maybe an affordable reality, during his lifetime.
Elon Musk, visionary technologist. His projects shoot for the moon, or literally Mars, across space travel, energy, and of course, transportation. His companies have propelled him to a net worth of almost $20 billion. But how have government policies and taxpayer money boosted his businesses? His major companies have all had significant government support in one form or another.
Elon Musk founded SpaceX in 2002 with an initial investment of $100 million, aiming to reduce space launch costs and enable Mars colonization.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Baby. Come on, baby. Let's go. All right, side. What you got?
Speed 1.2 kilometers per second, downrange distance 11 kilometers.
Shortly after main engine cutoff, we're going to separate the stages and begin the second stage ignition.
Come on.
Main engine cutoff. The first stage is returning to land as the second stage powers the Orcom satellite to low Earth orbit. The fairings have successfully deployed. The first stage will soon begin its series of 3 burns to head back towards Cape Canaveral.
Okay, where's the... Okay, this is bad. Potentially bad. It's standing up. It's standing up. When we started coming in, it sounded like an explosion. Yeah, man.
Oh my God. Yeah, look at this. Look at it. Look at it. It's just sitting there. Look at that.
What? Holy smokes, man.
It's kind of amazing that this window of opportunity is open for life to go beyond Earth. And we just don't know how long that window is going to be open. The thing that gets me most fired up is that creating a self-sustaining civilization on Mars would be the greatest adventure ever in human history. It would be so exciting to wake up in the morning and think that that's what's happening.
SpaceX turns 20 years old in a few months, and Elon has certainly made a lot of progress in that time. But big things have small beginnings. The early days were incredibly difficult for the company. Test launches kept failing, suppliers weren't delivering, and bankruptcy was always just around the corner. There was even a group of drunk Russians who almost ruined everything, but we'll get to that story in a minute. The early history of SpaceX is a powerful lesson in the importance of perseverance.
Since its inception, Musk viewed NASA and the Department of Defense as potential SpaceX partners because of the missions to make space exploration cost-effective. Musk became Tesla's CEO in 2008, which has also benefited massively from government contracts. The company focuses on electric vehicles, which is aligned with federal goals to reduce emissions and promote the use of clean energy. The alignment of the company with federal goals has massively attracted government incentives. Elon Musk's companies, especially SpaceX, secured massive government contracts through a combination of innovative technology, competitive pricing, strategic bidding, and leveraging government programs that push for commercial space development. SpaceX disrupted the aerospace industry through the development of reusable rocket technology, most notable being the Falcon 9 rocket. The ability to reuse rockets drastically lowered launch costs, Falcon 9's launch costing $60 million, compared to competitors like United Launch Alliance, whose Delta IV Heavy or Atlas V launches cost upwards of $350 million. Falcon 9 can deliver up to 23 tons to orbit, competing with more expensive alternatives. The cost difference made Musk's SpaceX an attractive partner for agencies like NASA and the Department of Defense that heavily rely on efficiency. SpaceX eventually won $15 billion for Falcon 9 launches and Starship development for lunar missions. The Department of Defense also awarded SpaceX billions to launch national security satellites and build a spy satellite constellation. The Dragon spacecraft, which Musk threatened to decommission following the public spat with Trump, was developed under NASA's Commercial Orbital Transportation Services Program, COTS, which was launched to develop and support cargo resupply to the International Space Station. NASA awarded SpaceX $396 million to design and build Dragon 1 for cargo missions to the International Space Station. Dragon 1 has gone on 23 successful missions between 2010 and 2020, demonstrating reliability that paved way for Dragon 2 that includes crew and cargo variants. After the Commercial Orbital Transportation Services Program, SpaceX secured more NASA contracts under the Commercial Resupply Services Program, CRS, under which Dragon 2 continues the Dragon 1 role. The NASA contracts, totaling over $15 billion, have been central to SpaceX's government revenue. SpaceX expanded its government portfolio with Starlink, providing internet for military operations, such as a $23 million Pentagon contract for Ukraine in 2023. SpaceX's Starlink satellite internet service secured contracts by addressing specific government needs, such as providing connectivity in remote areas. Examples include contracts with the U.S. Embassy in Turkmenistan, the U.S. Forestry Service for wildfire response, and a $2.3 million deal with USAID for infrastructure in Macedonia.
У нас було пару випадків, коли в громаді не було електроенергії взагалі. Ми достаємо Starlink, включаємося і вже працюємо.
Воробівка, це Новгородська громада. Коли був обстріл, людина поранена, і завдяки тому, що розкинули Starlink, вони змогли визвати швидку, ми поїхали на евакуацію, особисто я в тому числі приймав участь у евакуації цього чоловіка, передали на швидку. Тобто, якщо б не цей Starlink, людина б просто загинула.
Приграничных районах расстояния между населенными пунктами очень большие. Между ними пропадает постоянно мобильная связь. И вот нас выручает то, что у нас есть Starlink на крыше, и мы постоянно на связи.
Elon Musk and his company Starlink operate more than 4,500 of them. The technology gives customers and whole countries high-speed internet and the ability to communicate in places that otherwise wouldn't have connection. Nowhere are the benefits more evident than in Ukraine. The Ukrainian troops need Starlink's satellites to communicate with each other and wouldn't be able to fight Russia without it. But as the country is learning, Elon Musk has complete control of the technology and can turn off satellites whenever he wants. And that has military and political leaders around the world worried and questioning whether one man, who is at times erratic, should have complete control of the skies.
Starlink 6-9, go for launch.
Earlier this month, another round of Starlink satellites went up into space.
3, 2, 1, ignition, and liftoff. Go Falcon, go Starlink.
21 new satellites joining the now more than 4,500 orbiting the Earth, beaming down internet from space, connecting people even in the most remote areas to high-speed internet.
The satellites are about 300 miles up or so, and there's going to be a huge network of them. The satellites then all talk to each other and share data. That way they can send it quicker back down to your home.
The technology has assisted after natural disasters and has become a critical part of Ukraine's military strategy as they continue their defense against Russia. Starlink satellite internet allowing for battlefield communication, while also reportedly helping Ukraine coordinate drone strikes against Russia. But now there are some concerns about the man behind Starlink. Starlink, engineered by Elon Musk, founded SpaceX. He's increasingly voiced his opinion of the war. Musk last year threatened to pull the satellite internet from Ukraine. A recent New York Times article reporting that Musk temporarily cut off Starlink access in Ukraine multiple times during the war, writing that, quote, with little regulation and oversight, his erratic and personality-driven style has increasingly worried militaries and political leaders around the world.
When you look at the landscape of the capabilities he has access to, it's always interesting. But you could say the same of Amazon. You know, if you look at the consumption of cloud in DoD, probably 90+% is on Amazon.
New reports allege the U.S. government has donated 5,000 Starlink terminals to Ukraine, an estimate total of $10 million U.S. taxpayer dollars. The Pentagon saying this in June.
As you've heard us talk about, for reasons of operational security and due to the critical nature of satellite communication systems, it's just something that we're just not able to get into details at this time.
But with headlines including a proposed cage match with Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg and Musk's controversial takeover of Twitter, now X, some are wondering whether Musk or any person should have this much control over the skies and space.
A new biography about billionaire Elon Musk claims that the businessman disabled his company's Starlink satellite systems to thwart a Ukrainian drone attack on Russian warships near Crimea last year. The book alleges that Musk feared Moscow would retaliate with nuclear weapons. Musk began donating Starlink terminals to Ukraine in the early days of the war, a decision that the author claims Musk is now second-guessing.
How did Musk know that this attack was taking place? And what he says is that he was asked to enable satellites over Crimea, not disable them. He didn't disable them for Ukrainian purposes, and he refused that request on the basis you've outlined. The second question I would have, and this is no criticism particularly of the Ukrainians, is what were they doing planning an operation, making the assumption they would have facilities that were in question. The third interesting thing, by the way, is that the assumption behind all this is that Starlink, which certainly has coverage over the rest of Ukraine, does not seem to, or did not at that time, over Crimea itself. Well, one soldier I spoke to in Ukraine said that without Starlink, we would be, well, he didn't use the term, but would be in very serious trouble, let's say. It's absolutely central and critical for connectivity. So all the strikes that you see, all the drone strikes, the artillery strikes, the communications between military units, also the communications between military units and home, they're all facilitated by this absolutely unique constellation of satellites. And without that, the sinews of warfare could not continue. To the extent it's like the First World War, in the First World War, the troops had or used telephones where they could, Second World War radios. You can't use those systems of communication now. They'd be jammed or destroyed. So you need satellite communications. You need secure satellite communications, and Starlink supplies that.
So that raises the big question here, because, I mean, the U.S. has NASA, Europe has the European Space Agency. Why have they not developed their own Starlink? Aren't they putting their own security at risk by outsourcing such technology to a private company?
The main issue arising out of this is called dual use. So most satellite systems can be used by military or civilian users. So one example is Maxar. Maxar is a satellite I won't say surveillance company, but overhead reconnaissance. You and I can buy their images online. The military do. They order far more high-resolution images than we do. But essentially, it's a civilian system. Same with Starlink. Same with with thousands of other systems in orbit. And Starlink is by far the most efficient communications satellite system, to the extent now that Japan, the Japanese armed forces, are considering, according to a report a couple of months ago, considering having Starlink as their communication system because it's cheaper, faster, more efficient. It has higher latency, which means the signal comes quicker than any other competing system. The one problem, of course, which is hinted in your question, is are you devolving the key part of your defense to I won't call them the whims of Elon Musk, who the Russians have called a war criminal, but to the discretion, let's say, of a company, an oligarch's company. That's a really difficult question for a lot of defense analysts now.
Starshield, a secure satellite unit for national security programs, has contracts worth billions with U.S. intelligence agencies. Tesla secured a $465 million low-interest loan from the Department of Energy in 2010 to boost electric vehicle production. Musk oversaw the application process, holding daily briefs with Tesla execs, as well as government loan officers. The loan was critical during Tesla's cash-strapped years, helping with scaling the production of the Model S, with this success being underscored by the fact that Tesla repaid the loan ahead of schedule. Tesla also benefits from the government in a whole range of ways. For example, in 2024, Tesla earned $2.8 billion selling regulatory credits to other car makers, pursuant to federal funding emission requirements.
Before Tesla went public in 2010, it received a substantial government loan. Elon Musk took advantage of an entirely new government initiative called the Advanced Technology Vehicle Manufacturing Loan Program. Tesla received a $465 million loan and paid it back with interest in 2013, 9 years ahead of schedule. While addressing the American taxpayer, Musk said, "I hope we did you proud." Ford and Nissan also got larger loans with this program, along with Fisker Automotive, which went bankrupt. Tesla has inked north of $2 billion in federal and state subsidies in recent years. For a company that has yet to turn a yearly profit in almost a decade as a public company, the number is significant.
On the Tesla side, which now includes Solar City, obviously some of the biggest deals have been both in Nevada and also in upstate New York and Buffalo.
In Nevada, the state gave Tesla nearly $1.3 billion in tax breaks to build their first gigafactory in 2014. Tesla will be sales tax-free for 20 years, exempt from property tax for 10 years, and will receive millions in other incentives. That is, if they keep up their end of the bargain by investing billions into the facility and employing thousands of people.
I think that any other city or local government that's considering getting into this massive tax subsidy game should take a hard look at Reno and ask if the costs are worth the benefits.
And that $2 billion number doesn't include the federal electric vehicle tax credit that consumers get. The $7,500 credit has made Tesla's electric cars about $1.5 billion cheaper in aggregate for consumers in the U.S. Some states even have extra incentives on top of that. The federal credit is phasing out for Tesla starting in 2019. To be clear, other companies making electric cars benefit from this as well, and Tesla isn't the only company to get direct government subsidies. Tesla's competitors, GM, Ford, and Chrysler, all received more than $1 billion in subsidies in the state of Michigan, according to a New York Times investigation. Of course, Tesla sells fewer cars and has far fewer employees. Also, federal fuel economy standards have helped Tesla's bottom line. Automakers that sell gas-guzzling cars can buy credits from electric vehicle makers like Tesla to comply with regulations. Tesla said it made more than $830 million in revenue from 2015 to 2017 selling these credits. A Tesla spokesperson told CNBC, Tesla has succeeded in spite of government subsidies, not because of them. Third-party studies have shown that our biggest competitors, including the oil and gas industry, receive trillions of dollars in subsidies each year. In comparison, Tesla receives virtually nothing, yet still manages to compete with these giants. We would much prefer a level playing field where all companies go to zero incentives. While Tesla is helped by some incentives, other government policies has held the company back. For example, they aren't allowed to set up shop to sell their cars directly to consumers in every state. In 2015, Elon Musk responded directly to an LA Times report saying his company has received almost $5 billion in government support. He called the report misleading and deceptive, and defended taxpayer subsidies.
By adding up everything that's ever happened and including things that will take the next 20 years to happen and then summing that into a single number and playing it today, it makes it sound as though my company's getting some huge check, which is fundamentally false. And the reason these incentives are put in place is because the voters want a particular thing to happen, and they want it to happen faster than it might otherwise occur. None of them are necessary. They're all helpful.
So there was this narrative implanted in many people's brains by the Tesla fudsters starting back about 2018 that because Tesla gets paid money from other auto companies, their competitors, for regulatory credits, that for some reason that means that Tesla isn't really profitable.
I think by now, 5 or 6 years later, that stupid narrative has been debunked. Tesla is highly profitable, but getting paid by your competitors because they can't make enough clean cars sure is icing on the cake.
And, well, Tesla's cake just got some more icing. In the latest 10K filing with the SEC, we learned that Tesla got another $1.79 billion in revenue from regulatory credits in 2023. Now, Tesla's former CFO, Zachary Kirkhorn, has said that Tesla will eventually stop getting this revenue as Tesla's competition eventually starts making and selling enough zero-emission cars. But let's get real here for a minute. Tesla sold 1.3 million EVs in the U.S. in 2023.
Now, how many did GM sell?
About 76,000. That is 17 times fewer cars.
And it's not like this was the first year that GM was making and selling EVs.
That's a really good point. GM has been making the Chevy Bolt since 2017.
That's 7 years to get to 76,000 EVs sold annually.
Do you know how much Tesla has grown sales in that same time period? Tesla sold about 50,000 EVs in the US in 2017. So that means that Tesla, this new startup with one factory in 2017, was able to grow EV sales from 50,000 to 1.3 million in 7 years. And GM could only grow from 0 to 76,000 in 7 years. And because Jim Farley, CEO of Ford, has done such a horrible job producing zero-emission cars, they've had to pay Tesla for regulatory credits every year.
In fact, according to Bloomberg, Tesla has earned $9 billion in revenue since 2009 in regulatory credits from its competitors.
Now, will Tesla go bankrupt when they no longer get paid these regulatory credits by their competitors someday in the future?
No, of course not. Like we said, this is just icing on the cake. And the longer Tesla's competitors take to mass-produce EVs, the more billions of dollars will be paid to Tesla's coffers.
Welcome to the Tesla semi-truck event. I hope you like what you see. This is real time. Okay. The Tesla Semi will go 0 to 60 in 5 seconds. So that's by itself or with a trailer. Well, how far can they go? Because, well, let's find out. So, 500-mile range.
Some more details on Elon Musk's acquisition of those Twitter shares. And also he says, yes, oh, okay, yes, I am an active investor. I'm on the board of the company. So he refiled the disclosure of his stake in Twitter. Remember, before he had he had filed a 13G filing. Now it's a 13D filing, which technically changes him to an active investor. What's also interesting, Saz, we got some more details on how he bought his stake. There were some questions around this, right? Over what period did he do it? At what price did he do it? So we learned he made those purchases between January 31st and April 1st. The price, $32.80 to $40.30. So even if he was just a passive investor and was doing it as an investment, he's already done pretty well. But now, obviously, he's moving to being an activist investor. The shares, by the way, pulling back a little bit this morning. And also, I don't know where you stand on the whole edit button question on Twitter. This is something that some users have called for years. And Musk did a poll on whether people wanted an edit button. And then Parag Agrawal, the CEO, said, well, we've been working on this issue for quite some time, in fact. So maybe we'll get an edit button. I don't know.
Yeah, give me an edit button. I can use that. And also, too, when I try to post a GIF, it always shows up blurry. So if Elon can get on that and make that picture clearer, maybe tapping into the power of 5G, I would greatly appreciate that. One thing I do want to mention here, Julie, let's pull up a 5-day chart of Tesla. You can see that shares of Tesla have started to come off their highs, whether that's because investors or traders in Tesla are getting a little concerned that Musk, his attention will be diverted as he tries to save or jumpstart Twitter, whatever it is. You can see right there that you are seeing some increased selling pressure in Tesla.
SpaceX faced stiff competition from established players such as Lockheed Martin and Boeing, even though Musk aggressively lobbied to open up the spaces to private companies. Most notably, SpaceX protested the sole source contract awarded to Kistler Aerospace, prompting NASA to withdraw it and create the Commercial Orbital Transportation Services program.
All right. SpaceX has decided to file suit and protest the Air Force ELV block buy. This is not SpaceX protesting and saying that these launches should be awarded to us. We're just protesting and saying these launches should be competed. And if we compete and lose, that's fine. But why were they not even competed?
SpaceX actively filed lawsuits to gain access to government-funded space programs. For instance, SpaceX challenged the U.S. Air Force's monopolistic contract awards for national security launches, eventually securing a share of the contracts. As of 2025, SpaceX secured $733 million in national security space launch contracts from the Pentagon. Musk's companies have allegedly received $38 billion in government contracts, loans, and subsidies for over 20-plus years, including 400 federal contracts, 90 grants, over 20 tax credits, and 6 loans according to USA Spending and other sources.
Elon Musk was at the Pentagon this morning in a meeting that the administration categorizes as informal.
Still, at the same time, New York Times is reporting the world's richest man had planned to be briefed on the top secret military plan should the U.S. break out in a war with China. Here's ABC's Christiane Cordero.
Today, Elon Musk has a seat at the Pentagon's table. The New York Times last night cited U.S. officials in reporting the meeting was scheduled to be largely about China and that Musk would be briefed on the U.S.'s military plan for any war that might break out with China. It's unclear if anything changed since the New York Times story, which the Trump administration claims is false.
Mr. Musk, how was the meeting?
Musk this morning responded to the New York Times story, posting on his social media site X, "The New York Times is pure propaganda," adding, "I look forward to the prosecutions of those at the Pentagon who are leaking maliciously false information." Last night, an official told ABC News Musk was scheduled to speak with the Joint Chiefs and that the meeting was at least set to mention China. The Chinese market is vital for Musk's car company Tesla, which saw record sales there last year. Just last month, President Trump was asked if there were some areas where he wouldn't let Elon Musk work because of conflicts of interest. Trump responded, "If there is a conflict, then we won't let him get near it."
Even as Elon Musk's SpaceX launched a radio satellite into orbit today, the Pentagon and NASA are pushing his competitors to speed up development of their own spacecraft, according to the Washington Post.
The U.S. can survive without almost anybody, except me.
Musk disagrees, proposing on social media last night that a new political party is needed in America, a reversal from last year when Musk spent more than $250 million backing Trump and other Republicans. Today, Trump told NBC News if Musk decides to back Democratic candidates in the next election, there will be serious consequences. Amid Thursday's brutal back and forth between Trump and Musk, Tesla stock dropped 14%, losing $150 billion in market value.
Elon Musk's SpaceX has struck a contract with the Pentagon, a classified one at that. It's worth $1.8 billion. The details are hardly out there, but here's what we know. The funds from the deal are expected to become an important part of SpaceX's revenue mix for years. The company itself disclosed that. But it still did not reveal the name of the government customer, what the contract includes, what will be its purpose. For all we know, it could be to spy on people. Along with signing this top-secret contract, SpaceX has also expanded a secretive company satellite program called Starshield. The agreements are shrouded in secrecy. But what they do give away is a growing interdependence between SpaceX and America's national security. Take the Starshield unit. Last August, it won a $70 million award from the military. And in return, it was supposed to support 54 mission partners across the U.S. Army, Navy, Air Force, and Coast Guard. Now the deal has been further extended. Very little is known about it. The Starshield unit is tailored for government clients. It counts a former Air Force general among its leaders, in fact. On a webpage which SpaceX made public in the year 2022, it described Starshield as a satellite-providing unit. These satellites can handle secure communications, capture data about planet Earth, and carry sensors or other observation instruments for the government while in orbit. But that's pretty much all the company has actually disclosed. The program operates far from the public eye. Last May, the company's president, Gwynne Shotwell, said, and I'm quoting, "When I'm never sure what I can say in a public forum, I tend to zip it. But I can say that there is very good collaboration between the intelligence community and SpaceX." You see, SpaceX has actively hushed up the details, but it's abundantly clear the company has grown from a for-hire rocket launcher to a major national security contractor. Even its hiring process has evolved. The Starshield unit's online job postings have sought people with top secret clearances. They have also called for professionals who have worked with the Defense Department and the intelligence community. In fact, one advertised position required the applicants to represent Starshield to Pentagon combatant commands. These divisions oversee military operations around the world or specific functions such as transportation and cybersecurity.
The 2003 Department of Defense contract was one of the first, eventually totaling over $733 million for the national security space launch, plus the billions for Starlink, were very important for validation in the early years.
Shortly after Musk founded the company in the year 2002, it won a major launch contract, again with an undisclosed U.S. intelligence customer. Neither the agency nor the specific type of satellite was identified. Last year in June, the Pentagon bought SpaceX's Starlink broadband service. It signed agreements to pay for Ukrainian internet links during the war. The terms of this contract were not disclosed either. The Pentagon's overwhelming interest in SpaceX has only given Musk's company more power. Should a private firm run by an erratic billionaire like Elon Musk enjoy such monopoly is the question. Musk has already played God in the Ukraine war. Ukrainian drones have relied on Starlink to drop bombs on Russian front lines. But in 2022, when Ukraine planned a sneak attack on a Russian naval fleet off the Crimean coast, Musk allegedly ordered his engineers to turn off Starlink's satellite communications network.
So I wanted to get back to Lita's line of questioning. Are you able to provide any clarity at this point about how much, if any, funding DoD is providing to SpaceX for Starlink in Ukraine? Because there had been some reporting or some confusing reports about that. So can you at least rule out that DoD is previously funded funds?
Yeah. So as it relates to Ukraine and Starlink, the DoD has not paid SpaceX any money at this stage.
Okay. And just a broader question on that same subject. Do you have any concerns that this situation could set a bad precedent? I mean, SpaceX made the decision to send these terminals and to provide the service. So is the Pentagon being strong-armed into continuing funding for it instead of going through the process that we've seen play out over the past couple of months, where the Pentagon sources the Ukrainians' requirements and then, comes up with the capability that it feels is best, that best meets those requirements?
Yeah. So let me kind of approach it from a little bit of a different standpoint. So we haven't paid anything to SpaceX for Starlink in Ukraine to date, right? So what an individual company may or may not do in any particular corner of the world, of course, is incumbent on that company to decide and do. When it comes to the broader issue of providing satellite communication to Ukraine, we are in discussions with SpaceX as well as other companies to look at how best to provide that service. And so what I would say is that, as you well know, we have a process which we go through in terms of, and again, I don't want to speculate or say this has happened, but any type of service that the DoD is going to be funding, there's a process by which we would go through to look at contracting and acquisition requirements and how we would do that.
SpaceX's ability to deliver reliable, cost-effective solutions, such as the $1.6 billion contract in 2008 for 12 supply missions to the International Space Station, saved the company from near bankruptcy and established its credibility as both a government contractor and a space giant.
What are you going to do with $2 billion? Give me the gritty details of what that does for Redwood Materials.
Well, this is a huge vote of confidence, I'd say, into the American supply chain and building the supply chain here, expanding the capacity of it here. It is a very capital-intensive industry, and even though this is a vast amount, a large sum of money, this is not funding the entire project. We have to match that project with private capital, private equity that we raise and invest, and even with this large of a project, we're still only meeting a relatively small percentage of the overall U.S. demand for battery materials. So it is quite phenomenal how much growth has to happen into the future and how much investment has to happen.
JB, you alluded to it, so I'll go there. $2 billion is a lot of money, but will you have to raise more funds, and how will you go about doing that?
We have raised a lot of private funding in the past through the history of our company, and we'll continue to. It does make it easier as we see this strong support and these strong indications of support from the federal government, really for the first time in this sector. I mean, this is the very first federal funding that we've received of any sort. And I believe some of the first federal funding that's going into the battery supply chain at this magnitude. So while we will raise additional private capital and continue doing that in turn, it'll match with this and join with federal loans as well.
Talk to us about the politicization to a certain extent of the federal loans, but ultimately people worry about not just how much due diligence is done in the companies that ultimately get the funding. Previous issues have been in the prior noughties. But talk to us about China as well. Is there reality to some of the concerns, particularly by the GOP, about that this gives in some way China access to such money?
Well, I can definitely say firsthand that there's extensive diligence that goes into these programs. We've been working on this particular loan application for well over a year, almost a year and a half. And going through multiple layers of diligence on finance, on technology, on market, and customer, fit. So I feel that there is quite a robust process that the Department of Energy and the loan program has rolled out for this. And it's been refined over many years, as you've mentioned. Even more than 10 years ago, this same exact program was still in existence and was making loans to companies that targeted specific, very strategic areas for the country.
Yeah.
2010 $465 million Department of Energy Tesla loan was a lifeline during the company's financial struggles and a statement of intent in the fashion with which it was paid back. The $2.8 billion annual regulatory credits attached to Tesla have also been important for its revenue. SpaceX received $20 million in Texas subsidies for a launch facility, and Tesla's Gigafactory in Nevada came with $725 million in tax credits and incentives. NASA's $15 billion investment in SpaceX for Falcon 9, Dragon, and Starship development for the CRS and lunar missions has been very instrumental in its growth, especially with the Lunar and International Space Station programs. NASA selected SpaceX for a $2.89 billion contract in 2021 to develop a lunar landing system, beating out competitors like Blue Origin due to technical merit and cost.
Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin lost a months-long legal battle today against NASA. Back in April, NASA awarded Elon Musk SpaceX with a $2.9 billion contract. The mission? Build spacecraft that would ferry astronauts to the moon. Blue Origin lost out on that contract and sued in August, saying NASA wrongly awarded the contract to only SpaceX. In its lawsuit, Blue Origin accused NASA of having disregarded key flight safety requirements. In a tweet today, Bezos seemed to suggest the company would not appeal the decision, saying it's not the decision we wanted, but we respect the court's judgment and wish full success for NASA and SpaceX on the contract. While SpaceX didn't respond to CNBC's request for comment, Elon Musk did reply to a CNBC reporter's tweet about the ruling, tweeting a photo from the 2012 movie Dread with the words, "You have been judged."
Musk's solar company also benefits from federal policy supporting solar energy. He helped start Solar City in 2006, and it was bought by Tesla 10 years later. It's now called Tesla Energy.
That nobody with a brain cell would want to put these two together. Solar City desperately needed a bailout.
People who invest in solar energy can get a 30% tax credit on their costs of installation. Tesla Energy also goes after state incentives aggressively. In fact, recently it had to pay back millions to the state of Oregon for overstating the cost of large-scale projects in order to qualify for higher tax credits. Tesla told CNBC it provided the state with accurate information and was entitled to every dollar of tax credits it received. However, it settled for $13 million. The rocket company receives very little in the way of government subsidies, instead relying upon government contracts from NASA, the military, and satellite companies. NASA helped SpaceX get off the ground by awarding SpaceX with a key $400 million contract in 2006. Since then, SpaceX has won over $4 billion in additional awards from NASA, launching many critical missions for the U.S. Space Agency. SpaceX has also won over $600 million in military contracts. It has been on the government's list of top federal contractors since 2013. While that may sound like a lot of government money, these contracts are competitive bids against other aerospace companies, like United Launch Alliance and Boeing. Launching with SpaceX often costs taxpayers half as much as the money competitors requested. Elon Musk has repeatedly tweeted thanks to NASA, recently saying SpaceX would not be where it is today without NASA. Basing business off government contracts can be a risky strategy, but former PayPal founder Reid Hoffman thinks Musk has made it work.
I think, the second person Elon pitched SpaceX to, and I was like, oh, you're going to be doing this thing that comes off, national government subsidies and so forth. Oh, there's a disaster. He was right. I was wrong.
So while Tesla is not alone in going after government dollars to support its business, Elon Musk has certainly gotten some help from taxpayers along his rise to stardom.
In 2023, SpaceX faced scrutiny from the Department of Defense on allegations of discriminatory hiring practices. The lawsuit was dismissed in 2025.
The Department of Justice is suing SpaceX for alleged discrimination during its hiring process. The DOJ alleges the space company owned by billionaire Elon Musk refused to hire refugees who were granted asylum in the U.S. SpaceX leaders argue the law prevented them from hiring refugees, but the government says this is not true. This is the culmination of an investigation into SpaceX that the DOJ started back in 2020.
The Department of Justice has filed a lawsuit against SpaceX accusing the company of hiring discrimination. The lawsuit claims Elon Musk's space company is discriminating against refugees and asylum seekers. They started investigating SpaceX back in June of 2020, where they determined the company's claim that they could only hire U.S. citizens and lawful permanent residents were false. In America, you cannot ask about citizenship status as a part of the hiring process. The lawsuit is seeking policy changes from SpaceX, as well as civil penalties and lost back pay. SpaceX has not commented on the lawsuit.
3, 2, 1.
Business is booming at SpaceX. Recent launches by Elon Musk's rocket company included one lifting a new space telescope for Europe. But the company faces a legal headache. The US Justice Department says it's suing SpaceX over allegations it discriminated against asylum seekers and refugees in hiring. In a statement, it says the company routinely discouraged such applicants and refused to hire or even consider them. It says SpaceX job ads wrongly claimed that posts were only open to US citizens and green card holders. Officials also cited online posts by Musk. In June 2020, he said on Twitter, now called X, that people required at least a green card to work at the firm. He said that was because rockets are considered advanced weapons technology. In a new post, Musk said the lawsuit was the weaponization of the DOJ for political purposes. He said the company had repeatedly been told it faced restrictions on who it could hire at risk of violating international arms trafficking law. The Justice Department said it would seek back pay and other remedies for people who were denied employment.
The Department of Justice is saying that SpaceX violated a U.S. law that's called the Immigration and Nationality Act. What it does is it prohibits hiring discrimination for people against people who are granted either refugee status or asylum status. And the DOJ says that SpaceX CEO Elon Musk, as well as others at the company, wrongly said and represented in statements, in job ad postings, and other places that the company could hire only U.S. citizens. And that, they said, is because they put it on this federal export law that's known as the International Traffic in Arms Regulation. But the DOJ, they say that those laws treat refugees and asylum grantees as U.S. citizens for the purpose of hiring and employment. One example that the DOJ gave was a tweet from Elon Musk in June of 2020, where he said U.S. law requires at least a green card to be hired at SpaceX, as rockets are advanced weapons of technology. The DOJ also alleging that the company's application database that receives its job applicants entries for employment, that it repeatedly rejected applicants who either chose refugee or asylum as their status to work in the country. Now, Musk has already shot back on X, on Twitter, if you want to call it, accusing the Biden administration of weaponizing the Justice Department for political motives. Here's what he wrote there. He said SpaceX was told repeatedly hiring anyone who was not a permanent resident of the U.S. would violate international arms trafficking law, that law we just talked about, which would be a criminal offense. Now, he doesn't say who exactly told the company that. This case, though, is before an administrative court, and so we'll have to see what the next chapter here brings. But for now, the Justice Department is saying that the company has broken between 2018 and 2020 these employment-type laws.
SpaceX employees are encouraged to follow SpaceX and to follow Elon Musk on Twitter. And in my orientation, we were encouraged to follow him on Twitter. In the employee handbook, it mentions that his Twitter feed is a source of official company news that's allowed to be shared with the public. So if you're not following him on Twitter, then you're missing things. And actual delivery dates and deadlines and functions of entire teams and departments are impacted day to day by what he decides to tweet in the middle of the night. He decided to, put out a return to office order and talk about it on his Twitter, and that became the law. And a friend of mine had a Starship delivery date changed overnight because it was on Twitter. So now it's law. So it's not just the nonsense, but the stuff that impacts people's actual day-to-day work functionality is tweeted about. And then since he's already said it and it's public, it's now written into the official plan.
It was interesting that you said you felt like an outsider, an other, because that you're female, but many would say, look, the person actually running the show, the COO, Gwynne Shotwell, female too. How is her voice not allowing your voice to be heard?
She is very much part of the problem. I think that she comes from a generation of just a different perspective, maybe, but she's so ingrained in the culture there and the lifestyle that she's not willing to rock the boat at all at this point. She's very much not the adult in the room that the rest of the world kind of makes her out to be. She is a huge part of the problem. I think it's this brand of kind of, I want to say like girl boss feminism that doesn't really uplift those around you, doesn't feel the need to open your eyes to the very real concerns of people around you. She likes to, when people have conversations with her, she will focus on one counterpoint to a valid argument as a means of dismissing the entire argument, which is disingenuous and really in bad faith.
You have therefore sued, and I'm interested to know what you hope to get out of this page.
Accountability, most of all, but I think accountability because the leadership forms the culture so much, and because it's such a painful place to work, and working at SpaceX can open doors for you elsewhere, and so it's a really amazing opportunity. And I don't think that opportunity should be constrained to the people who are, the typical engineering demographic. There are voices and perspectives to be heard that can contribute in a meaningful way that don't, look like the status quo. But aside from that, I think speaking up and telling my story hopefully will help other people who, look around them and don't see anyone else that looks like them and don't know that their experiences aren't isolated to their own experiences, can speak up and share the stories around them.
Musk has also been investigated for environmental violations and alleged drug use. But nothing substantive has come out of all this.
5 environmental groups are suing the Federal Aviation Administration now. Those groups argue that the FAA violated the National Environment Policy Act during a recent SpaceX launch. The lawsuit says that Starship test flight on April 20th blew up the company's launch pad and in turn hurled chunks of concrete and metal sheets thousands of feet away into sensitive habitat. Those groups argue that the FAA should have conducted an in-depth environmental report first.
Some executives and board members at Elon Musk's companies are persistently concerned about his drug use. Musk has previously smoked marijuana in public and on the Joe Rogan podcast, and he has said that he has a prescription for ketamine. The Journal report cites people who have witnessed Mr. Musk's alleged drug use and others who have knowledge of it as saying that Musk has used LSD, cocaine, ecstasy, and psychedelic mushrooms, often at parties, private parties around the world. An attorney for Musk told the Journal that Mr. Musk is regularly and randomly tested at SpaceX and has never failed a test. The Journal report says board members at Tesla have spoken to each other about their concerns, but haven't said anything formal that would end up in meeting minutes. But among the concerns, you might think, well, it's private, right? Well, if it's illegal drug use could violate federal contracts and would also break company policies.
I can understand the key man theory. Because these companies, both SpaceX and Tesla, are entirely dependent on Elon Musk still being there. Even Ron Barron has told us that, one of his most fervent defenders, a huge long-term bullish investor.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see.
He's 50-something. He's in his
Yeah, he's young 50s. I think he's 52 or 53.
Still dabbling a bit in the...
It's kind of a rough last day in government for Elon Musk, who showed up to the Oval Office for some kind of send-off with a black eye, just hours after new bombshell reporting on allegations of his voracious drug use. In a lengthy article citing people familiar with his activities, the New York Times reports that Musk's drug consumption went well beyond occasional use. He told people he was taking so much ketamine, a powerful anesthetic, that it was affecting his bladder, a known effect of chronic use. I learned that today from the New York Times, didn't know that. He took ecstasy and psychedelic mushrooms, and he traveled with a daily medication box that held about 20 pills, including ones with the markings of the stimulant Adderall, according to a photo of the box and people who have seen it. The Times adds that while his drug use on the campaign trail was more than occasional, it is unclear whether he was taking drugs when he became a fixture at the White House this year.
What is your sense now about the drug use rumors now that he's out of Washington?
On the company side with his drug use, it's been interesting. He was getting advanced warnings at SpaceX ahead of drug tests. And so that's a very big deal because SpaceX is a private company. It's a massive government contractor. You can't even basically take ibuprofen with a security clearance without reporting it to the government. Last year, my colleagues here and I reported on all these issues with Elon's security clearance and how they were not reporting his ketamine use to the government. And so now we have reported that he also was getting heads up ahead of these drug tests. And so it doesn't, to me, seem like the companies are taking it very seriously, at least from the reporting I've done.
President Trump paid tribute to first buddy Elon Musk today, as the world's richest man said farewell to the White House.
That's it, really. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you.
Musk's exit from Trump world comes as a jaw-dropping New York Times report claims he was taking a powerful cocktail of drugs while he was on the campaign trail. The Times says it's unclear whether Musk was taking drugs when he became a fixture at the White House this year. According to the Times expose, Musk's erratic behavior, including waving a chainsaw around and that notorious Nazi-like stiff arm, can be attributed to a daily mix of ketamine, ecstasy, psychedelic mushrooms, and Adderall. They claim he travels with a daily medication box that holds 20 pills. He told people he was taking so much ketamine that it was affecting his bladder, a known effect of chronic use. Last year, Musk told journalist Don Lemon he used prescription ketamine to cope with depression, but denied abusing the drug.
If you use too much ketamine, you can't really get work done. So I have a lot of work.
Repeated use of these substances, especially the cognitive deficits and the mood swings that can end up happening when somebody's using ketamine regularly. So those mood disturbances that can make somebody edgier, can make them less functional, and therefore can make them act in ways that are not typical for them.
There is a New York Times report today that accuses you of blurring the line.
When a reporter tried to ask Musk about the Times report today, he hit back.
New York Times, is that the same publication that got a Pulitzer Prize for false reporting on the Russiagate? That New York Times? Let's move on.
And what's with the shiner on his right eye? He got it roughhousing with little X.
I said, go ahead, punch me in the face, and he did. Turns out even a 5-year-old punching you in the face actually does.
That was X that did?
Yeah.
X could do it. If you knew X, you could do it.
So clearly you have many aspirations and an overwhelming drive to innovate. Take us back to when you were young. What were you like? What did you do? And how was motivation and drive sort of manifested and cultivated?
So I definitely was very driven as a kid and very willful. One of the things that I remember most from my childhood is I was, I think, 6 or something, maybe around that age. I was just learning to read, basically, and I was grounded one afternoon and prevented from going to play with my cousins who lived on the other side of town. And I disagreed with this, so I escaped from my nanny and walked across town.
At 6?
Yeah.
Okay.
and I could barely read the road signs. So, I mean, irrespective, this was obviously a very foolish thing to do because something terrible could have happened to me. I could have been kidnapped or run over or something like that.
Right.
But I was so determined to go play with my cousins that I basically walked clear across the city, the capital city.
At 6 years old.
Yeah.
And then you made it there, so you're successful, so you figured I can do anything I want.
I wouldn't say it was quite like that.
Until you got
but
grounded.
I did. My mom got really freaked out because she saw me, just as I was getting to my cousin's house, she saw me walking along the sidewalk and flipped out because she didn't know how I got there. Then I saw her and I ran and climbed up a tree, and I wouldn't come down until they promised they wouldn't punish me and that I could play with my cousins.
And so they never punished you?
I didn't get punished, actually, but they didn't let me play with my cousins either.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
So your parents were influential in some ways. They took care of you, even though they let you, find your way across town by yourself. But how did they influence you? Did they make you read? Did they encourage, education? Did they make you go to science camp? Did they make you build things?
I was always sort of really interested in reading when I was a kid, and I read everything that I could get my hands on. I read the encyclopedia. I read every.
At what age?
Let's see, probably age 9 or 10.
Okay. You were starting to read it?
Well, and not that I actually wanted to read the encyclopedia, but I ran out of things to read, so in desperation I read the encyclopedia.
You just really wanted to learn. So
yeah.
At an early stage you had that, and you had that inner drive yourself.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I just sort of, I got bored easily, and so unless I was doing something like reading or playing a video game or watching TV, and we had like terrible TV in South Africa. It was really bad TV. Mm-hmm. So there was only at best, I like watching TV.
Right.
There wasn't that much of it, so.
But boredom leads to great things.
Boredom, yeah, so boredom led to a lot of reading.
So now, fast forward, Tesla started in 2003?
Yeah.
Started in 2003.
Wow, that is a big fast forward, yeah.
Yeah, well, we could talk about your 20s and 30s. We won't do that.
Okay, so going to Tesla.
Yeah, so talk about the concept, the idea. What inspired you?
Sure.
Who was around you to help make this an idea, a reality?
Yeah, actually, if I can go back a little bit to that, a little bit further and say the origins of why electric vehicles. Well, when I was in college, I thought about what are the things that are most going to affect the future of humanity, and the three things I came up with were the internet, transitioning to a sustainable energy economy, and that means both production and consumption of energy in a sustainable way, and the third was space exploration. So my interest in electric cars goes back 20 years to when I was in college. In fact, the original reason I came out to Silicon Valley was to go to Stanford to work on a PhD in applied physics and material science to develop advanced energy storage technologies for electric vehicles.
Okay.
So this is a really long-standing interest of mine.
Right.
Goes back to way before 2003, but the thing that kind of spurred things in 2003 was a lunch that I had with Harold Rosen and J.B. Straubel, and that I got this sort of call out of the blue from Harold Rosen. He's a famous guy in space and electric cars.
Oh.
So he had something called Rosen Motors, but he also worked for Hughes Aerospace, and that's kind of how the connection kind of bridged over. And at the lunch, we were just talking about a bunch of things in general, and I mentioned that I had originally come out to California to work on electric vehicle technologies, and then Harold mentioned, told me a bit about his past with Rosen Motors, and then JB mentioned that hey, there's this company called AC Propulsion that has this kind of very rough prototype electric sports car running on lithium-ion batteries, and it's getting really good performance. So I said that sounds interesting, and I thought with the advent of lithium-ion, that really is a sort of a key enabler for electric cars.
Right.
So JB arranged for a test drive of the AC propulsion T0 in 2003.
How many miles did it go back then?
Well, actually, the performance specs of the T0 are very similar to the Roadster.
Oh.
But it's a much more primitive car. It's basically like a kit car. It's sort of just a fiberglass.
Like a golf cart or something.
There's a little bit of a golf cart, but it's not something you could ever sell to people.
Okay.
Like it didn't have a roof. It didn't have any safety systems. It was very expensive and hand built. So I tried to convince the AC propulsion guys to commercialize the T0 and said, hey, I'm willing to fund you if you want to commercialize the T0, but it just wasn't of interest to them.
Right.
They were a very sort of small outfit. They liked to sort of tinker and experiment, but they weren't really interested, at least at the time, in creating a production sports car, electric sports car. So, but I kept pushing them on this, and eventually I said, look, if you're not going to do it, then I'm going to do it. And they said, well, if you're going to do it, there's some other people we should introduce you to. Maybe you guys should team up and go and do it. And that's how I met Martin Everhard, Mark Topping, and Ian Wright. And then JB also joined. I was actually able to convince JB to join Tesla. And so that's sort of like the founding team of Tesla was the five of us.
So when you started thinking about this idea and building it out, and there's different entry strategies, right, to get into the electric car industry, and your goal is to make mass market cars. That you created a very expensive, not mass market car, $100,000 Roadster, high expensive, low volume. Why that entry strategy?
It's actually, I think it's the only entry strategy that I thought had any chance of success. And the reason for that is, as a small startup, we don't have the economies of scale of the big car companies. Plus, we're really working with the first generation of technology. And there are two things that are really important in making technology available to the mass market and making it affordable. And those two things are economies of scale and being able to optimize the design. And it usually takes, by the third version of something, that's when it kind of starts to reach mass market potential.
Right.
So using that sort of basic rule of thumb, the strategy I had was to start off with a high-priced, low-volume car, being the sports car. And there's only a few types of cars that people are willing to pay a high price for. Sports cars being one of them, really premium sedans being another. But the easiest way for us to come to market with a long-range car was with a sort of smaller sports car. And then phase two, which we're seeing now, is the Model S, and that's mid-price, mid-volume. And then phase three is the high-volume, low-price car, or lower price.
Right. Now, you raised $260 million from your IPO, about $325 million or so in private capital, and almost $500 million in federal loans to get your cars to market. Correct?
Yeah. I'd have to check on the number for the private capital. I'm not sure it's 300.
Okay.
I think it's less than that.
Okay.
But
several.
Well, a couple hundred million.
Let's say it's here or there. Okay.
Call it a couple $100 million in private capital.
You raised some money.
A couple $100 million in IPO, and then
half of the 460
almost
million
$500 million in government loans.
In government loans.
Although it's important to point out, we've actually only exercised $50 million of the government loans.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's only a small portion of it, and that only started this year in February.
Okay.
One of the common misperceptions out there is that we got bailed out by the government last year because...
That's very common, isn't it?
Everybody's getting bailed out. But actually the first government cash we received was only earlier this year in February.
Okay.
And we did make an announcement last year that we'd received a conditional commitment from the Department of Energy, but it was not. We didn't actually receive any cash. So if we'd needed cash or if we needed cash last year from the government, we'd be dead.
So you have sort of a credit line from the government, as sounds
yeah,
like
we've essentially a credit line.
Okay. Do you think you'll draw on that, and do you think that you will need? Okay, so you will draw on that, but you have sufficient funds, and just what's the probability that you will not have to raise additional money before you get the Model S out in 2012?
Well, I think we have really, it's very unlikely that we will need to raise additional money for the Model S program. I feel very confident being able to complete the Model S program for something very close to what we have budgeted, which is on the order of $500 million in total. Now, it's possible that we could decide that in order to fund developments beyond the Model S, that we want to sell some additional equity or something like that.
Right.
Or, you know, it could be that some of our investors want some additional liquidity or something like that. But I feel very confident in saying that we will not need to raise additional capital for the Model S program.
Let's talk about the Model S. You have them, the base price is $49,900. It goes about 160 miles. And then it goes all the way up to 100,000, as you said, and maybe 300 miles or so. But in the next year, actually in the next 6 months, you're going to have a number of hybrid cars, the GM car Volt, Chevrolet Volt, and
Volt,
Nissan.
yeah, right.
Different markets, yes. I mean, 33,000, 41,000, but the car, your Model S is $49,000. You know, that's sort of similar markets. I mean, if you...
I wouldn't say they're similar markets.
Really?
Yeah.
Well then, okay. Because you could, well, wouldn't you want to get somebody in the market for a $41,000 car to upgrade and buy a $49,000 car?
Well, I think the best way to think of the Model S is that it's comparable to, say, a BMW 5 or 7 Series or an Audi A6, A8.
Yeah.
So it's really, it's a premium sedan.
Okay.
And I think anyone who can afford the Model S is not going to be buying the Volt or the Leaf or anything else. It's really, this will be the car that they would prefer. So I think affordability is the only thing that's going to stop people from buying the Model S.
Okay. So now, Tesla benefited from the zero-emission vehicle program.
Yeah.
You made about $8 million in that. So to what extent did that factor into the decision to make pure play electric cars versus hybrid cars?
It didn't factor into it at all.
Really, $8 million isn't a lot of money.
No, it's obviously it's desirable. I think it's a good thing, but it wasn't something that drove our decision. I mean, we really wanted to make zero-emission vehicles, and the ZEV credit thing was helpful in us succeeding in doing that. I mean, we could succeed, I think, without the ZEV credits, but the ZEV credits definitely help.
You wouldn't have done it if you would have done it if the credits weren't there.
Correct. But nonetheless, we're still grateful for the credits, and they're certainly helpful.
I'm sure.
But I mean, the car would be profitable even without the ZEV credits.
Is the company profitable today? When is it going to be profitable?
Well, if Tesla if all Tesla did was make make sports cars. If we were just a niche sports car maker and sold powertrains to other car companies, we would be profitable today. So we're running right now around 20 to 22% gross margin. So you know, any company that's running sort of on the order of 20% gross margin can be profitable if their business, as long as they don't try to grow their business too fast. But in our case, we are growing our business very fast. You know, we're talking about increasing our production volume from roughly 500 cars a year to 20,000 cars a year. That's a factor of 40 increase in 3 years.
Yeah. So in 3 years, do you think, are you going to be profitable? Are you telling Wall Street you're not going to be profitable for the next 3 years? Or?
Correct. Yeah, we have. Yeah, and it's not really possible to be profitable. Because essentially what we're saying is we're going to take $500 million in R&D and tooling and that kind of thing and spend that over the next, say, roughly 10 quarters. So that's an average of R&D and tooling expense of $50 million a quarter.
Okay. Let's talk about your strategy, your distribution strategy. That's something that you're innovating there as well. You hired the head of a veteran at the Apple and Gap stores. That says a lot about your strategy, as opposed to hiring someone that's a veteran in dealerships.
Sure.
What's your strategy there?
Well, I think for a lot of people, the car buying experience is quite negative. They don't look forward to buying a car. And I think we want to try to have a fundamentally superior consumer experience from the moment you think about buying a car to the actual acquisition, the ownership, the service. We're really trying to achieve something that is substantially superior to what people have experienced in the past. So we don't want to. That's why we don't sort of inherit, what was done in the past, because it's really not good. I mean, I think if you were to ask most people, what's the worst retail experience you had? I mean, for a lot of people, that's buying a car.
Yeah.
So not something you want to emulate.
No, that's a
on the other side of the spectrum,
innovation.
you have sort of, I think Apple is arguably the best on the retail front, where people are really drawn to an Apple store. Gap is also excellent in that regard. And so that's, better to emulate their approach than to try to copy the old way of doing business.
Yeah. So at Vader, we have many entrepreneurs watching this program, and they're always interested in how someone fundraises. And you raised money for a car, and you've never had any experience building a car. You had the passion.
Yeah.
So was it difficult to raise the money for Tesla, or is it because you already put $100 million into SpaceX and had enough money? Did that make it easier to bring new investors into your venture?
Well, I think I had the advantage initially of having the capital from PayPal, and so I was able to do all of the initial funding myself.
For Tesla, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Almost all, I shouldn't say all, but like 90% of it. And then there were some other investors. There were some minor venture investors in the beginning.
So not very.
But essentially, I did almost all the initial investment myself.
Okay.
And with that initial investment, the first thing we did was to try to get a working prototype.
How much was that? Did you put in for the working prototype, an initial investment?
I think it took us. Well, I did most of the Series A and Series B. I think I put in probably about 15 million or something like that.
Okay.